I want to start with what you were just saying before we started recording. I was like, Rob, hurry up and run the tape. You said we live in a corny world.
We've gone from fame replacing great, right? So it became more important at one point to be famous than to be great, because as a currency, you had to be great at one time to get a record deal, to do all that stuff. And then that sort of dwindled as time went on, which is just fine. But it has absolutely replaced great. And what you can do on the internet and market yourself and all this other stuff, because you can make a lot of money just being famous. But now it's taken another leap, which is fascinating. It's gone to attention. And sometimes that leads or contributes to a very corny world. I think social media has the biggest impact that I've seen in my lifetime, you know?
And that contributes to people being corny for attention on social media, you think?
Yeah, well, because you can make money. And the people that don't need money want attention. And they want to be the top of the news or the viral or, you know, most of my friends, if they go viral, they're devastated. Do you know what I'm saying? They're like, oh, shit. Well, they don't even know.
I think not even knowing would be the place that I would aspire to be in. Like, I want to make great work. Obviously, I'm public facing because I happen to be obsessed with podcasts and I want to make some of the best podcasts in the world. But I try to it comes from you. I did this video. I obviously did the Founders episode on you because you've been one of the people I most admire for a long period of time. And we did this clip that got almost like 2 million views of your advice about, you know, why do horses have blinders on them? And that it's one of my favorite things. Every time I post it, it still like resonates. And I post things to remind myself where it's like, hey, I'm chasing after greatness, right? And it doesn't matter. I can't look left and I can't look right and worry about what other people are doing. This is one of the things I most admire about you. We spent a few hours together at your house yesterday. You're very kind to invite me over there again. And you pulled up this insane video from 2004, which is 4 or 5 years before Spotify was founded. And you essentially were talking about what you saw as the technological shift happening in the music industry. What was that video about?
I always wanted Interscope to move laterally. I didn't want to keep drilling the same hole. I hate drilling the same hole. That's just me. I get bored drilling the same hole. That's kind of why I've jumped around industries a little bit and had to learn on the fly a lot, you know? So, but that was about around 2000. We had this little TV show called Jimmy and Doug's Farm Club. It was about uploading your music to Interscope. And we would put you on our TV show, and it was fantastic, and it worked. And what I really wanted to do was have a music streaming service of all you can eat.
But this was before it was invented. You were talking about the ideal situation before it was actually founded.
But you know, I see online all the time, people talk about shit before it happens, you know what I mean? But that, you know, that's 10% of the game. The game is getting it right. You know, MySpace was ahead of its time, but it lost the race. So I was very fortunate to be at least early enough to have Apple Music get on the board. I had Beats Music and then went to Apple Music. So at least we became number 2. Daniel, who's extraordinary, had the wherewithal and the ability to get the licenses from a record business that didn't understand at all what he was talking about. The fact that he wrestled those licenses out, it's so, I mean, you could prove it, because if you look at those deals are reflective of the iTunes download market, 70-30. That was the same business as the download market. So they just copied that, which is not a great bit model for that. Why? Because you have not enough money in the streaming service in order for it to really live. So they got to now go out and find different versions of revenue, right? And they pay 70% or whatever it is now, 72%, 70-60. I don't know what the negotiations have been since then. And structured in a really odd way, because let's say, for example, you're married, you have 2 kids, and you have a family plan. And you and your wife play The Clash, The Police, etc. But your kids play Drake and Kendrick Lamar all day. Most of the money from your house goes to Drake and Kendrick Lamar. What you're hearing about is that the artists are like, they used to be able to earn a living like that. But now, unless you're in that top chunk of heavy streaming, the money's not really meaningful. So that's a problem they have to fix. You know, there's no question about that. But there's a lot wrong with streaming, in my opinion. You know, it's one-dimensional. It's an ATM machine. You put your money in, you get your music. They don't do anything for the artist. See, the artists want to communicate with their fans, period. That's what they want. They want to communicate, they want to market themselves. And the streaming services are still saying, we'll put you on our list if you're nice to us or if you like us. That's bullshit. You got to allow them to have your audience and let them breathe, which is what, you know, not for philanthropic reasons, but this is what TikTok does. That's what Instagram does. You could somewhat promote yourself. So the streaming services, to me, are minutes away from being obsolete because of that. You can't rub against the artist like that. You just can't. You got to give them what they want. They're driving this ship. I learned that in 1973. I came from Red Hook, Brooklyn. My dad was a longshoreman. I walked in the studio with John Lennon. I did 3 albums with him, and I got my own apartment. I realized, okay, the rest of my life, I'm going to try to meet, maybe not John Lennon, but people that can do this and with real talent, and my life is going to be okay. All I got to do is not get thrown out of the fucking room.
And you looked at it even back then as like an act of service to the artists that you're working with?
Not for that person on the other end of the glass. What the hell do I know how to do?
You have this great line in The Defiant Ones, which I've told you, I've watched probably at least 10 times. And you're like, 99% of this, when people say, oh, I did this or I did that, and the music business, you're like, it's complete bullshit. It all comes down to the artists that you're working with.
Yeah, and today, by the way, a lot of artists are producers, like Dr. Dre, Timberland, and some of the younger guys, which I'm just not that familiar with. I've been out of the music business a while. They write the songs, they make the records, but in my day, 80% of it was the artist. You know, Bruce Springsteen wrote the songs, had the idea, had the vision, you know, and you helped, you know, so that's what I was coming from.
There's a great point. I'm glad you brought up Bruce, because me and you were talking about that yesterday. I told you I've been going through it. I went through his autobiography, and I really think that book changed my life in many ways. I watched one of your interviews. You said one of the best pieces of advice that you ever got was from John Landau, because they were working you like a dog, and you were thinking about like leaving, and he's like, let me tell you, he's like, stay in the saddle.
Well, Bruce was torturing me. He was, he says that, he said himself in an interview, I think maybe in that documentary, he said, an artist needs to be indulged.
Yeah.
Right? Or something like that. When you're striving for something, well, the truth is that we would try to do something and I couldn't get it right. And it took 3 weeks to get like a drum sound, like a simple thing, you know, but it was really hard. And I let my pride, they brought somebody in to help, and I let my pride get in the way. So I went to John Landau, and he said, I'm going to tell you something you didn't learn in that neighborhood of yours. Your mother and father didn't, because he knew my family. Your mother and father didn't tell you this. This is not about you. This is about Bruce Springsteen and about the record we're making. And I'll tell you, for the rest of my life, that just stopped me in my tracks. And because the rest of my life, if you apply, this is not about me, you could really get somewhere, even if you're not that good. Just being humble enough to say that and not thinking that because you had one success that you're, you know, the Beatles or Elon Musk or Steve Jobs or whatever, you know, is that it's not about you. And if you could follow that, it's really good.
One of my favorite lines from the history of entrepreneurship actually comes from Henry Ford. And he said that. He's like, money comes naturally as a result of service. And some of my favorite entrepreneurs and what I'm trying to do in my life too is just like, I'm just going to focus on making something valuable that makes somebody else's life better. And so create like an act of service. And then once you do that, just try to serve more people, right? spread the product, the service, in this case, the podcast, to as many people. And then like the score will take care of itself. I won't worry about, the value coming back to me.
The whole thing you got to do is, look, there's a certain amount of feigned humility that's good, and it works. If you practice it long enough, you actually become somewhat humble.
Do you consider yourself a humble person?
I think I have a humble side.
Say more about that.
I do. Well, I come from a family. My father was a humble guy. He was a dock worker, a longshoreman, manual labor. Not, I don't know a lot of people whose fathers really work manual labor, where if it's 90 degrees down the pier, it's 120 in the hull of the ship. When you're carrying coffee bags, they're 100 pounds a piece, right? All day. So, but he had pride, but he was humble. And if you're willing to give yourself up for a greater cause, and in my case, when I was younger, it was an album, right? If you're willing to do that and set your bullshit aside to get someone else's vision, it takes humility to do that. And if you're truly doing that, yeah, I have some humility that I'm proud of,
One of the things I love most about Jimmy Iovine is the fact that he spent his career working with the very best people he can. People like John Lennon, Bruce Springsteen, Tom Petty, Bono, Dr. Dre, Trent Reznor, Eminem, and Steve Jobs. Jimmy knew, just like Steve Jobs knew, just like Jeff Bezos knew, that you always bet on talent. In fact, Steve Jobs said so. He said that you must find the extraordinary people and that a small team of A players can run circles around a giant team of B and C players. Jeff Bezos set the tone from his very first shareholder letter when he said that setting the bar high in our approach to hiring has been and will continue to be the single most important element of Amazon's success. You must build a team that pursues the A players. That is exactly what Jimmy Iovine did, and that is exactly what Ramp did. Ramp is the presenting sponsor of this podcast, and Ramp has the most talented technical team in their industry. Becoming an engineer at Ramp is nearly impossible. In the last 12 months, Ramp has hired only 0.23% of the people that applied. That means when you use Ramp, you now have top-tier technical talent and some of the best AI engineers in the world working on your behalf 24/7 to automate and improve all of your business's financial operations, and they do this on a single platform. Ramp gives your business easy-to-use corporate credit cards for your entire team, automated expense reporting, and cost control. That means the longer you use Ramp, the more efficient your company becomes. I run my business on Ramp, and so do most of the other top founders and CEOs that I know. I hear from people that listen to this podcast every day that have switched to Ramp and rave about the quality of the product. Businesses are saving millions of dollars a year by switching to Ramp. Make a wise decision by going to ramp.com to learn how they can help your business save time and money today. That is ramp.com.
Every single person that I've either read about that worked with you or has given interviews, they say that you want Jimmy in the room because he'll tell you the truth.
Yeah.
I want to tell the story because it's hilarious, and then I want to ask you about this. I'm reading, Bruce Springsteen's 600-page autobiography. The book's so big you can work out with the goddamn thing. And there's a story in there where he's struggling and he's trying to do something new, and he's in LA, and he invites my good friend Jimmy Iovine comes over. We play this new album for him and no one else has heard. He said, you sat there silently for 80 minutes. He turns it off and then you just say one thing. He goes, so when are you going to record the vocals? Because the music was so loud. But he goes, that's why you want Jimmy in the room, because he'll tell you the truth.
I'll give you the setting. He was doing the album for about 2 years. It was The River. And they worked really, really hard on that. And he was doing it, but because I engineered his album, I knew he had a tendency to bury the vocal, right? And I knew those guys really well. I knew Landau and Bruce pretty well by then. Actually, part of the story he didn't tell, which was funny, is Tom Petty was sitting next to me.
You shouldn't have left that out.
Because I was producing Tom Petty at the time. We went over and visited, right? So he plays us a double album. And the vocal was buried. So I just said to myself, I got one line to penetrate, because I saw Bruce's face and he was serious as a fucking heart attack. You know what I mean? He's at the end of an album. He's exhausted. So I just said, when are you going to sing it? Right? And, it was very funny, but it was very clear. And they did. They went back in and they remixed the whole album. which was the right thing to do.
But where did you get the self-confidence? Because how old were you when you started working with John Lennon? 20, 21?
20.
Yeah. You told him the truth too. Like, where did that come from?
Because not out of arrogance or confidence, it's comfort. My father really drilled in me from when I was a little kid that wherever you go, the place is better because you're there, because you're a decent person. He used, you're a humble person, you're a decent person, you're a good person, and you're not going to screw anybody in his language, right? So wherever I went in my life, I always feel comfortable. I'm very insecure in my personal life, which I've grown out of in the last, that 72, hello, right? Thank God, who the fuck wants to die that insecure, right? But, in work, I always had a certain amount of confidence because it came natural to me. Nothing came natural to me before that. But when I sat at a console and I put the faders up, the balance came very, very naturally and people liked it. So that's kind of where I got some of the confidence from. But, I don't know. I was always willing to say what I felt about music and to anybody at any time. And what's the point of asking me a question if I'm not supposed to give you my answer? I don't understand that philosophy.
It's one of the funniest things. I played this clip for you.
Because, one second.
No, go for it. Interrupt as much as you want.
One of the reasons is I really don't think I walk in trying to get you to like me. Because I believe you do.
Say more about this. You told me this yesterday. I feel the same way, by the way. To explain.
You know what I mean? That shouldn't sound egotistical, because let me tell you, the people that walk in a room, when you meet a lot of angry people, they think people aren't going to like them, and it's not true. So I'm not saying that I'm arrogant. What I'm saying is that I deal with a lot of people that are very defensive and are aggressive because they think people don't like them. And you know that. We know a lot of people that are very visible right now that I can smell. They think everybody hates them.
And some of them say that privately.
I'm sure. Yeah. I'm sure.
Yeah.
But you can smell it. Mm-hmm. And that's not ego, thinking that people are going to like you. It's because I came from a home in a neighborhood where that was it.
You have this brutal honesty.
But you're leaving one word out.
What's that?
Brutal honesty, but an enormous amount of respect.
Yeah, I don't think you do it in a disrespectful way.
No, you can't do it in a disrespectful way.
I don't even think you'd be in a room with somebody you didn't respect. Because you have complete control over your environment.
What happens is, you think you build these walls and you get over these fences, right? And you go, okay, I'm on the other side. I'm insulated. I'm this, I'm that. And then you have kids. Mm-hmm. And the kids bring the world back in. And all of a sudden, if you want to get your kid into school, you're going to go sit across. Sometimes you're going to sit across an asshole. You know what I mean? And so the answer to that question is no. So once you have kids, you just go back to zero, or whatever. But Bruce Springsteen said it best. He says a lot of things best, He said, when I was making music, when I was on Born to Run in particular, when he was flat broke, I knew Bruce. When I met John Lennon was 3 years after the Beatles broke up, right? So I did 3 albums with him. But he was already John Lennon. He had Imagine already. So he was John, right? Bruce was broke, dropped from his label, and his career was in trouble, right? So he had to, he said publicly, I didn't want to be rich. I didn't want to be famous. Man, I didn't even want to be happy. I wanted to be great. And when I was 20 to 27, really 20 to 25, I got to work with Bruce Springsteen on 2 albums, John Lennon on 3, Patti Smith on 1, and Tom Petty at that point on 1. So I learned my college years, those impressionable years of college, I spent with those 4 people. And it was unbelievable. It was such an education about culture, about life, about what's important, about all those things. And I just sucked it in because I was a really no Etch a Sketch. I had nothing going on. I didn't understand anything. So everything that they taught me, I just breathed in. I was lucky that it was them, you know, and I just took it all in, and it really set the tone for my life about
Why?
because these are some of the most culturally relevant poets of the 20th century, you know? And when I say poet, I mean the person, you know, I mean, not just that they write lyrics, you know? And they had the right attitude about their work and their product.
What was the right attitude about their work or their
Well, they
product?
weren't thinking about how to promote it. They were thinking about how to make it, you know? And it's kind of what I liked about Steve Jobs when I met him, you know? I met a lot of these guys since the year 2000, you know, because I'd gone on the road. Once Napster came out, I was like, oh, shit, what's going on? I better learn something new, you know? I mean, because this trick isn't going to work anymore. You know, the whole music business I felt was going to be upside down, you know, and it has been. But in those days, I wanted to get a feel for what I called at that time the other side. So I met with a bunch of tech companies. Then I started to and then I met Steve. And he was the only one that had soul. And
Similar to the same soul of the artist that you worked with?
yes, absolutely. But the only one. He had soul and feel. And we bonded on John Lennon and Bob Dylan. You know, we would talk about that all the time, you know, and he had the same attitude that they had. Now, he was a businessman. He was a lot of things that they're not, and there are a lot of things that he isn't. But it translated to me was you can be in this world and have soul. And you don't find that a lot.
Why did you say that when you met him, you're like, he's the only one that's going to get this done? Meaning, I think it was this is pre-streaming. This was I think the
it was
iTunes. Yeah, she's like,
I
why did
helped
you?
him get the licenses for iTunes.
You did?
I helped him. But
So
yeah,
why could he do it and no one else?
because he understood. He understood what made artists tick. He understood the why. Most engineers that I've met in my now 25 years of playing in that world is they don't understand the why of the people that do what I used to do. And that's why it was so interesting. I knew from then that tech was going to buy all the media companies. Media companies move in different ways, you know? They don't move like the tech business. And when I met him, I said, this guy gets it. Now, is he tough? Is he, I don't know, ruthless? Maybe, I don't know. But I can tell you what, he gets it. He gets it, you know? And most of the people I meet in that world know how to do what they're doing. But as far as the particular thing that Steve had, I haven't met another one that has that. I really, not that they're bad people or anything. They don't have that. By the way, you can like music. Like all these guys always say, I love music. I love chocolate, but I don't understand Hershey's. Do you know what I mean? I really don't understand it.
Yeah.
Who makes chocolate and how they make it. So, you know, you could like music all day. And it's completely, one engineer told me once, we were working on something, there was going to be video involved. He said to me, I know how that should end. I love television. I mean,
That's not the same thing, man.
you know, so, but anyway.
Steve called you one day to congratulate you because he said there's all these people trying to make hardware and they're not successful at it. And you were one of the few people that had no experience, by the way, making hardware that made hardware successfully. The interesting part about that, one, I want to hear more about that, but two, why did he call music software?
You know that answer better than me.
I've never heard anybody, I mean, I guess
I mean,
it is.
it's treated like, you know, ones and zeros or whatever, you know, because that's how it comes across. You know, and whatever that is, you know.
He's like, all these software guys want to make hardware and they can't.
Well, he always felt that what was unique about Apple, is that a software company can make hardware.
Let's talk about the schools.
Why the school is important to talk about because it ties into all of this. occasionally I run into someone who says he's the next Steve Jobs, she's the next Steve Jobs. Well, let me tell you something. There's not going to be another Steve Jobs. There'll be some great people, and there are some incredible people around today that are doing something extraordinary, creating these companies, etc. But to be Steve Jobs, you have to truly understand the cross between technology and liberal arts, where those two things meet and interact. When I had Beats, I realized that engineering, design, and culture, the collaboration was not happening the way I thought it would. I thought everybody in the world in tech was like Steve Jobs, because he got it. He got the why of everything that I was doing and the people around me were doing. He understood it at its core. It was in his instinct, right? What I realized when I met a lot of other people in the tech business, all the companies and everything, they're engineering societies fundamentally. And I find, you can't generalize it, but there are people that aren't like that. But for the most part, why software companies don't make hardware is they don't truly understand design, right? And they can't communicate with it, right? And that's what I think. What the fuck do I know? But that's what I think. That's what I've observed, right? And
How did you know there's a need for a new school, though?
because I realized it was education, because I realized it was siloing in education. That you go to, because I see, again, what do I know? I know like the feel of young people, culture, right? So I see the way kids are being brought up. They're brought multidisciplinary right now. For the last 15 years, they're all being brought up with multiple disciplines, tech, music, culture, design. They're all fascinated by that. So when you go to school, when you go to college, you get siloed. You go to Wharton, you're an accountant. Yeah, they have classes and they have an engineering course you could take. But you take that engineering course with 50 other engineers, right? So now you're seeing school. Remember, we started the school 14 years ago.
That long ago?
Yeah.
Wow.
Absolutely.
And it was you and Dr. Dre, you endowed it with $70 million to get it started.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we had none of one of us went to school. So we had we're not afraid to do things we have no idea we're doing. And we put our own money up, right? So that's, I don't care who you are, that's a lot of money, right? But I knew there was a problem and we wanted to fix it. And siloed learning, you're hearing a lot of people doing it now, trying to bring all the disciplines. But what they do is they bring it in through the side door. You could take a course at any other school. Our school is a school of collaboration, which you saw. So if you lean towards tech, or if you lean toward the arts, or if you lean toward entrepreneurship, or if you lean toward design, you get to work in concert. You innovate collaboratively, which is what these big companies don't have. They don't really sing in concert, in harmony. And that's what I observed, right? I observed that. I don't know that. I observed that. It's the problems that I had communicating and the problems they had communicating with me. And
When's the first time you had that problem? Was it when you were trying to build a product?
Beats.
Beats.
Beats was a product, not by accident, like the iPod. I wanted culture, design, music, right? I wanted it all connected. So I met Steve Jobs and he was like, oh, this guy gets it all. So I figured everybody did.
Did you pitch him on doing the headphones?
Yeah.
Together?
Yeah.
What'd he say?
He didn't say, I don't want to do headphones, you do them. So we went out to a restaurant once, I'll never forget it. We went to this Greek restaurant. And this was it was after he was sick. And but we went out to a restaurant and it was one of those restaurants where they put the paper thing with it could be the crayons for the kids, and they could draw. And so we're in the middle of lunch. I said, I want to build this headphone company. He goes, you can do it. You build a headphone company. I said, why don't we just do it together? I don't want to do a headphone company. You build a headphone company, right? So I said, okay. He goes, let me show you how. And he Called the guy, took all the food. Good thing I don't care about eating one way or the other. I mean, I like food, but it's not the most important thing in my life. So, and he said, give me a marker. And the guy gave him a marker. And he drew distribution, inventory, it'll kill you. China, you can make things that are made in China, but they can't look like they were made in China. I said, holy shit. I was like, holy shit. So, and then he would guide me along the way, and he was fantastic, right? But I thought, when I started Beats, that I'm naive in a lot. I thought I could find people like that. But I found people that are design. I found people that are engineers. And I found people in popular culture. I wanted them all to understand how to collaborate. And I just said, siloed learning is bullshit. And now we have 5, 6 high schools. And it's a great place. It's considered one of the best interdisciplinary schools in the country, and I'm really proud of that. But again, what do I know about education? Not a lot. I learned a lot in the last 15 years, but really not a lot.
Yeah, it started with the instinct that you just didn't think it was being done correctly. And you'll just learn.
I know how to get something done.
Yeah, this goes back to you just being a natural born entrepreneur. It's just like,
I just know how to get something done. I know how to I met this great dean, Erica Mull. I met her. I said, oh, she could do this. She was from the Roski School. But I just felt instinctively that she could do. It's an art school at USC.
Okay.
And then there was the president, Max Nikias. He was an engineer, but I knew he got it, And we built it, and now it's a fabulous school, It's a really fab. A lot of people want to go there. It's fantastic. Look, I work on a lot of things I don't know how to do, but I can get it done. I don't claim to be some great technologist, but I made a great headphone.
I think I've studied you a lot. I've talked to you now for hours and hours and hours. I still am trying to figure out, like, you have this collection of, I'm trying to think of, like, what is your highest talent? I just ran into Steve Stout at a friend's birthday party, which was really funny because he worked for you for a long time. I was like, dude, I'm seeing Jimmy soon. Can you, like, give me some stories? And I think you're obviously a phenomenal marketer. Let me ask you, like, what do you actually think your talent is? And I want to tell the story that Steve told me.
My talent, whatever it is, I'm learning more about now because I'm not running the companies. So when I used to run the companies, like when I ran Interscope, when I ran Beats, and when I ran what became Apple Music, I just woke up in the day and did everything by my instinct. Whatever that was in the morning, it's a little more difficult to do it at Apple than it was when they were on my own companies because they have a giant infrastructure and they have, I always felt like I was a bit on the tail that's wagging the dog. I used to live on the dog, and the whole thing about.
But when you were running the company, you wake up and just instinct.
Purely, or listen to people, and grab a piece from here and a piece from there, and synthesize.
Did you go after difficult things on purpose?
I only went about what I felt. When Dre said to me,
that was one example, because Dre comes to you. He plays, is it the Chronic? What is he playing for you the very first time? Or is like some
the Chronic, finished.
And I think you asked him, like, who engineered this?
Right.
And he's like, I did. And he's like, well, who produced it? And he's like, I did. And then you're like, oh, within a few minutes of meeting him, he said something like, he's going to define Interscope.
Right.
But then he had a very hairy situation you had to get him out of, right?
It was impossible. It was everything you, watching these shows and stuff, you think it is.
Okay, so what was going on?
Well, what happened was I connected dots, which I think I do really well. I saw him and Snoop. I finally heard hip hop with the 808 bass, that big bass sound. Producers couldn't harness it. All the records, whether it was Public Enemy or any of those records made in New York, they couldn't harness that. And to where I understood it. Dre was the first person to really harness it and give it the power that it deserved because he gave it the clarity that it deserved. It's very hard to do. So I understood that. And when I saw that combined with Snoop and Dre and the image that they were projecting and they were talking about, I said, this is the Rolling Stones. I said, this is Mick and Keith. It scares you, but the music brings you in. So I'm like, this has to work. I didn't have to understand the music, which I didn't in the beginning. Now I think I do, you know? I mean, not as much as some of the pioneers of hip hop, but I understand it.
Were there lawsuits? Were there signed? Like, what did you have to untangle?
There were 3 lawsuits. There was a RICO lawsuit, right?
RICO?
That came with Sony, yeah. There was...
Wait, I thought, is RICO money laundering? What is...
The gangsterism.
Gangster, okay, that's right.
That was from the Eazy-E thing.
Oh, okay.
Right? It's in all the movies. I'm not talking out of school. So there was a RICO lawsuit. There was a guy in prison who supposedly put up the money for one of the albums, the first album. So he was suing them from prison. There was Sony, and there was a company that's distributed Eazy-E's label that was suing as well, or challenging as well. So I had to settle all those things out, which is kind of like if you see something great, but there's T-Rex sitting on it. And most people would avoid, say, look, there must be something else to eat.
And you just know, I'm only want to work with great?
If I see something new and great and unusual, I can't stop. That's why beats attracted me so much. I looked at it and said, oh shit, people are wearing these things on their head and they look like medical equipment. There's nothing attractive about a headphone.
The funny thing about that is there was opportunity hiding in plain sight. And you're like, what's our competition, guys? Bose, there's no music. It's like silence.
Well,
it's
their marketing thing was you can go to sleep with us.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's ridiculous. What a marketing thing, right? So I said, no. We want to wake you up.
Okay, hold on. I want to pause here because I text Daniel Ek, right? Founder of Spotify. And I was like, tell me, give me some ideas because he's known you forever. He told me the first time we ever had dinner, he's like, I only lost 2 deals in my life and both of them were to Jimmy Iovine, which is hilarious.
Well, that just means my bullshit was better than his. It doesn't mean what he did in the music business, man. No one has any idea how hard it was. Patti Smith had an incredible line. Is people have the power to dream, to rule, and to wrestle the world from fools.
Ooh, that's good.
Okay? That's what Daniel Ek did, okay? So anytime you get a guy like that, I didn't beat him at anything. I just must have been slicker than him. That's all.
To me, in my opinion, wildly underrated still to this day. One of the most fascinating people to me. But he's like, ask him about the origins of beats. Did you do the headphones before you did the streaming service?
Yes.
So hardware first. That was the initial idea.
It was all about moving Interscope laterally. I think companies should move laterally, and they don't. Most companies don't move laterally out of fear. That's why what I'm doing with Complex right now, which we'll talk about in a minute, I got the opportunity. I came out of retirement a bit because I got another bite at the apple because I couldn't finish my thought on streaming.
Well, what do you mean by lateral, though?
Like, for example, Interscope was a music company, right? I wanted to make the hardware to listen to it. I wanted to have a streaming service. I wanted to distribute my own music. So I wanted to have the complete thought. I wanted to make the music, have the artists that make the music, distribute the music, and then have the instrument you listen to it on. So that's moving laterally. I would have also wanted, which I'm doing now with Complex, to have e-commerce. So artists can communicate in different ways with their audience.
So these businesses that other artists, let's just use musicians for example, are starting now, you were the only one that did it inside of a record label.
That's right.
So you have this idea for beats. You see this opportunity. Obviously, Dre's known for the best sonics ever.
Right.
So it makes perfect alignment with him. This was Steve Stout's point to me, where he's like, Jimmy's just a phenomenal marketer. I'm going to come back to beats real quick. I want to close that loop. Where he's like, ask him about the fact that he's bringing these super controversial artists at the time. They're not that well known. I think it was Dre and Snoop. And they wouldn't play him on the top 40. And he says, Jimmy did something genius to get Dre and Snoop played on the top 40. What did you do?
Well, I just considered it a reflex. What we did was I said, okay, you got to understand, whenever there's gatekeepers on anything, your job is to figure out a way around the gatekeeper with something you really believe in. Whether the gatekeepers are people at your own company, or people in, at radio stations or at wherever the gatekeepers are. Your job is to skate around them, right? So I said, okay, let's do this. Let's make a minute commercial of G-Thang, which was Dre's first single with Snoop, right? I said, let's make a 60-second spot. Now, I don't want anything said before it or after it. I just want it to play.
The radio's not going to play my song. That's fine. I'm going to buy ad space on the radio and play the song.
Yes. And we did on the 50 top markets, spent a fortune doing it. And then we simultaneously, we got it on MTV because they didn't play rap music either. They played MC Hammer, but they didn't play, I guess you call it gangster rap or whatever music is today. They didn't play that then, right?
How'd you get on MTV?
I said, this is the same thing as Guns N' Roses, period.
You said that twice now. You said Snoop Dre is Mick and Keith. You say this is just like Guns N' Roses. What does that mean?
It means that it's counterculture, that people are going to relate to it. People that feel marginalized and feel isolated and feel angry. And it represents an entire culture that people are going to relate to. And that's what Guns N' Roses did. That's what the Rolling Stones did. That's what Nirvana did. That's what James Brown did. It's that thing, that moves people. So, yeah, I instinctively felt that.
So who do you go to at MTV? You just go to the top guy? Like, how do you actually get it done?
I said, play this. He goes, I can't play this. And he had the remote in his hand. His TV was on behind him. I said, I can't because we play this. And it was 3 women singing. And then the next video was a guy and, and all this. But it was pure pop music, right? And I said, I don't know how to program. I said, put it next to Guns N' Roses. And if it doesn't work, please never play an Interscope record again.
Wow.
So he put it on.
You had that much belief.
You don't have to be talented to know that. I mean, it's just fucking obvious. You know what I mean? Ask Rick Rubin. He knew it before me, right? So, but what it caused was all these kids, sons of senators, daughters of senators, Congress people, business people, they came home and wanted those records. And when that happened, that's what led to the whole falling out with Time Warner that we had when Interscope got thrown out of Time Warner over lyrics. Because Bob Dole, Dolores Tucker, Bill Bennett, right, who was the education czar or whatever he was at the time, all those guys. Bill Clinton went on the floor of the Senate. And, Bob Dole said we were, somebody said we were a mustard gas factory or something like that.
Yeah, I remember that.
But I've been involved with, and I was involved with John Lennon. They tried to throw him out. When I was doing his album, Nixon was lit. He had to go to court every day during Walls and Bridges because Nixon was trying to throw him out of the country. That was real.
Yeah, that's insane.
That was real.
Yeah.
Because he was against the war, right? So I'm used to that. I'm like, so what? I mean, yeah, I didn't care what those people were saying.
So you got him on MTV. You got him on the radio. Once you played the ads on the radio, then people start calling.
Of course.
They start calling the radio stations, like, play that song.
Of course.
That is an ad. No one else is doing this.
Only because I wouldn't do anything illegal, because I'm psychotic about doing anything that is illegal or anything. So I just said, this is legal. Let's do this. I mean, the record business, God knows what they did to get records played. But they weren't going to play these records. There was no chance. And look, there's nobody better at this. No one. The greatest record executive of all time, is a guy named Berry Gordy.
I've heard the name, but know nothing about him.
Well, he founded Motown.
Oh, okay.
During Jim Crow. You know what I mean? So his artists weren't even allowed off the bus. They were considered race records. He had to get those records played. He had to get that into the white market. What he did, talk about wrestling the earth from fools. Berry Gordy, miracle what he did. And he made the greatest music in the world. So when he pushed, it stuck. See, if you know what you have is going to stick, and if you're passionate about it, then just break through that wall, because there's going to be a lot of resistance. But if it sticks, you win.
Yeah.
It has to stick, though.
There's actually a lesson for entrepreneurs in there too, because I reread Jeff Bezos' shareholder letters like 3 or 4 times. He's like one of the entrepreneurs I most admire. And he realized he had a sticky product with Amazon because he saw that once you become an Amazon customer, you not only do you order, but you reorder, and then you ask Amazon to carry more things. And so he tells the story of this guy emailing him, or he emailed 1,000 customers saying, hey, you bought a book. What else did you buy? And one guy goes, can you sell me windshield wipers? And he's like, oh my God, we're gonna be able to sell anything like this. And so he goes, okay, if we have high retention with my product, which he knew at Amazon, that means I have a winning system. That means I need to invest heavily in introductions to new customers.
Right.
Because the 10 million or whatever the number is, let's say you spend 100 million in new customer introductions and advertising, marketing this year. It's like these people are gonna be with me next year, the year after, a decade.
Well, if you're an entrepreneur and you see something work, you can extrapolate what else will work, right? And that's what he did. But I mean, these guys have built businesses that dwarf anything I've ever even dreamed of, But they can extrapolate, like, for example, Beats, right? We have this, I was always frustrated that the music industry didn't have customers. It drove me crazy.
What do you mean they don't have customers?
They don't have a customer. They still don't have a customer.
They don't have the relationship with the end user, you mean?
Right. Instagram does. TikTok does. Yeah. MTV did. Constantly, the streaming services do. For some reason, the music industry is allergic to a customer. Okay? And I don't know why, but they don't have an end user.
What was the first time they outsourced the relationship with the end customer? Is this just
always?
So even when you're selling it to through record stores back in the day,
radio, MTV,
you would have controlled so when you said you want to go lateral, the entrepreneurial version of this, a business version, you want to vertically integrate. You want to vertically integrate all the way down. So you would have even had Interscope. If there's
but I want to vertically integrate, if you call it that, to fashion. I mean,
because you guys are controlling the culture. They're having the influence.
We're causing it.
Ooh.
My artists are causing the culture. Artists that I work with, rather, putting it clearly. For example, we put beats in all of our music videos when we first started.
You were insistent and relentless with this.
So what? But
I'm not.
But I put a lot more money in the videos. Everybody benefited. You know what I mean? And it was a time that the industry was desperate. So, yeah, man. We did that, and it worked.
Worked is an understatement.
Yeah, it worked, and we built the #1 headphone company in the world. When we sold to Apple, we were #1 in 50 countries, man. We were #1 in Germany, and Sennheiser was #2. We were #1 in Japan, and Sony was #2. I still can't believe it, to be honest with you.
This goes back to you have this instinct. I'm still trying to figure out, your web of really special talents, and marketing is definitely one of them. You have this weird instinct to just make the right
Marketing is empathy.
Say more.
It's empathy. Marketing is understanding who you're trying to communicate with and understand them and understand from where they click and come. That's all marketing is. You can call it marketing, what I do. I don't think it's marketing. I guess I have a feel for the market of who I want to sell things or communicate with, right? I'm not Bob Dylan by any stretch of the imagination. But Bob Dylan, to take it to an extreme, had a feel for an entire generation, and he made his product. He made it because he was a purist. He wanted to do something great. But it turns out that was marketing. The product is marketing. If you make the product great. Steve Jobs is a great marketer. So, yeah, if you know your product and you know your audience, I guess that's a great marketer. But all it is empathy, understanding what somebody else is feeling on a massive scale.
All of the founders and extreme winners that I have studied have this one trait in common. They have excessively high energy levels. If you're going to be the best at what you do, you need to maximize your energy and output. And that's why I've partnered with Function. I signed up for Function long before they were a sponsor of this podcast. And when you sign up, they ask you what your health goals are. And my response in all capital letters was maximum energy. Function provides access to comprehensive blood tests and other lab testing to help you improve your health so you can perform at your highest level. Function has made it easy for me to monitor and improve my internal health markers so that I feel at my absolute strongest. As a member of Function, you get access to test over 100 plus biomarkers, from hormones to toxins to markers for heart health, inflammation, and stress. Function gives you a straightforward analysis of all your results along with advice from expert doctors on how to improve things like your testosterone, your stress hormones, how to reduce toxins in your body, and much more. The platform is absolutely beautiful and provides an easy to understand picture of your overall health. Once you try Function, you will immediately understand why it's the fastest growing health platform in the country. You can now join Function for just $365 a year. That's $1 a day. Learn more and join by visiting functionhealth.com/Senra and use code Senra25 for a $25 credit towards your membership. That is functionhealth.com/Senra.
So how long did you have the headphones before you decided you bought like a small streaming service?
Yeah,
right?
it was about, I bought it in probably 2011.
Like how long were the headphones going?
3 years into it.
So 3 years into it, and it's called, what was I forgot the,
Mog.
okay.
Yeah.
And you rename it Beats.
Yeah, Spotify had 3 million subscribers at the time we sold to Apple. I renamed it Beats Music, but I realized I couldn't scale it on my own because, as you know, with Spotify, it costs a lot of money to do that. And I realized I can't do this on, me and Dre, we can't do this on our own. So we brought Trent Reznor on, right? Who's an incredible talent. Talk about understanding technology and the arts and culture, and his partner Atticus Ross. They make some of the greatest music in the world right now. So, there's all the movies and everything he's doing.
So you try to run it, and then you realized
I can't scale it on my own.
Can't scale it on your own.
I wanted it to be at Interscope, and for one reason or another, we couldn't get that done. The guys running at the time weren't in charge, really. There was the whole Vivendi thing and all that stuff. I went to them early on. I said, I want to build businesses with your artist. And the guy actually said to me, he goes, Jimmy, I hear you. We paid a lot for your company. I have respect for you, but we want to sell CDs. And that's what we do. So that's how part of my story that not a lot of people know is I was a CEO of Interscope. I had to get the right to start another business. I asked Vivendi to give me $100 million to Interscope to start businesses with the artists inside Interscope. And in fairness to them, they didn't see that. They didn't want to do it. So I said, my contract was up. And I said, I'm not going to be the guy to sell the last CD. I got no interest in this. I'm going to do something else.
They didn't see it at the time that they were in a dying or a dwindling business?
Because it wasn't. This is 2003.
So you saw it early.
It scared the hell out of me. For some reason, the day it started, Napster, I said, this is toast. Because I understand the market. I understand why the audience would say, I'd much rather be doing my homework and not have to ask my mother to take me to a record store. Okay? That simple impulse, and it's free, that's a feel that an entrepreneur has.
Once you see it, you can't put the genie back in that bottle. There's just no way it's going to go away.
I knew that. And then I went and met with people at Intel and places like that. And I heard these guys talk, and I'm like, holy shit.
What were they saying that made you say, holy shit?
One of the things the guy at Intel said to me is, Jimmy, I got to tell you something. Your story is compelling. He said, but not every industry was built to last forever. I was like, this guy's smarter than me. Yeah, where do you want to start, right? And so I'm like, oh shit, right? So I went to them and I said, I can't just be in the record business.
The music almost goes like something you sell to something that markets another product is how you actually monetize it.
I don't know what it is. I just call it lateral. I can't break it down to what it is. I just know the feeling.
You told me yesterday, you're like, I'm just a hustler.
I know how to hustle. That's
I
not
do
a bad
too.
word.
I know. I love it.
By the way,
I feel the exact same way.
The greatest baseball players in the world were hustlers. That's what I call a hustler.
I don't think it's a pejorative. I don't think it's a negative
Well,
term.
people think it is.
Oh, not me and you, though.
It's not. What I'm saying is I know how to hustle, meaning I'm willing to work harder than the next guy.
What you did for Dre, when you first met him, Dre and Suge, you're like, well, this guy's great. There's an asset in front of me, and the asset is a big, hairy problem that no one else wants to solve. And if I can kill the T-Rex that is sitting on top of this genius,
Right.
then I get to work with the genius. That is hustling. That is being resourceful. That's the same thing.
As Dre would say, it's a little bit of street knowledge.
Yeah.
You know,
And what is street knowledge? It's an understanding of people as they actually are.
well, because you have what street knowledge is you have to move around because the world isn't, it's tough. You know, in any neighborhood, I don't know what you call it, lower class or whatever it is, you know. My dad was a longshoreman. We lived in an Italian neighborhood in Red Hook, Brooklyn. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah, you lived in a neighborhood with actual gangsters.
well,
Mafia.
yeah, but I wasn't. I mean,
No, I know you
my
weren't, but
family
like,
weren't, you know.
no, but you were in the neighborhood that,
Yeah.
the mafia was everywhere.
Oh, yeah. Well, my neighborhood was an Italian neighborhood, only in America. I mean, everything was the same. You know, there's 4 fish stores on a restaurant. There's 3 pizza places on one street. You know, it was like that, you know. So, and my father worked down at docks, and everybody worked down at docks.
I know you were saying it's instinct. Maybe you weren't like, there weren't words around this idea. You just understood it. But you saw it's like, if I'm a college kid, and I was at this time, and I was using Napster and Kazaa and all the other LimeWire and all the other ones, like, I don't have to go to the store. I'm definitely downloading this. And now we have MP3 players. So like, the record store's gone.
One of the hardest things that I had to do when I look back on my career, life, whatever it is, had a lot. We all have a lot of hard things. One of the hardest things was getting Universal, Vivendi, to give me permission to build beats, to build products with my artists. Beats came 3 years later.
This is when your response to them was, I don't want to be the guy that sells the last CD.
That's it. This thing is not going to work the way it is right now. We have to move laterally. And I just instinctively knew that. And I wasn't going to do it. I was going to quit.
That's an interesting idea if you sit down and actually think about what's happening. For the whole time of recorded music industry, you made the music, you recorded it, and then you sold it physically, right? And you're already understanding, oh, once it's digital and free, that means we have to sell something else that we're not going to be able to sell the music anymore.
I knew we were invaded.
Invaded.
Okay. And I knew that something had to change. I didn't know what it was, but I knew we couldn't just do only what we're doing. And that's like a music instinct. You know who knew that? The Beatles knew that. If you listen to the Beatles, every album was new and different. They reinvented themselves on every album, you know? And if they keep it moving. You know, the great company, that's why Apple was so great. He kept it moving, kept innovating and moving it. And I felt that the record business needed to stop doing, not just do what they were doing. And that was really hard because they were paying me a lot of money. They just bought my company for, I don't know, hundreds of millions of dollars, right? But I wasn't going to do it. I knew it was not what I wanted to do. And the problem is people say, well, the record business turned out okay. Well, it did and it didn't. Of course, Spotify is worth $150 billion, and the entire record industry is worth half that together.
It's really smart. It's like, for the longest time, we sold it. Now you can't sell it anymore. I'm talking about music. So and you're not going to agree with this, it becomes advertising or marketing. These songs become advertising or marketing for another product you can sell, whether it's, concerts. They were selling concerts back in the day, products, all this other stuff that they're doing. Like, you had that insight before in the music industry before anybody else.
No, not before anybody else. Hip hop saw it.
You're right, because they were doing the shoes,
Yes.
the sneakers, the alcohol.
Yes. Def Jam, Adidas.
Did they influence your thinking on this?
Absolutely. I owe African American culture so much. I have a debt to Black culture.
Why do you think rap? Because I grew up on hip hop. I told you, like, it's still almost all the stuff I listen to now. Why did they figure out how to monetize? I hate using that word. Or make money off music besides selling music for anybody else did?
Because they're practical and they see the truth and they saw what it was.
What's the next bite at the apple?
The record industry now can rewrite gets the luxury of rewriting the book with AI. They can
AI created music.
Yeah, creative music, interact, many things. It isn't just creating a song. It's It's how you listen to music, everything. It can affect everything. So there is, let's say, hypothetically, I'm right in the record industry. Your word wrong is not fair. Didn't take advantage of it, didn't optimize the streaming thing. What would optimizing be? They would have their own distribution. That would be optimizing, and they don't, right? They have another bite at the apple right now. It could start ring the bell all over again, Etch-a-Sketch, and go back into it. But where they can make a giant mistake, in my opinion, okay, is if they start licensing their music to every dog and that comes in the door.
Which is their normal route of doing things.
Yes, you got to build enterprise around AI. Now, you can't just give the enterprise to someone else.
But you know everybody in the music industry, when you tell them this, what's their response? The people in power right now.
Well, all I can tell you is I can't tell you everything that I'm doing because I think the labels are now realizing, and again, really all I can tell you is Universal Music has invested in a project that we're doing called Complex that has the ability to go on and do a lot of these things that I'm talking about. It's media, it's live, meaning Complex Con, and it's e-commerce, right? I want to help the labels, if I can, build enterprise around AI and not just be licensors. I felt that way about streaming, and I feel even stronger about that. They shouldn't be afraid of the tech. They shouldn't be. You don't have to understand something fully to do it. I'm proof of that. I don't understand fucking anything. You know what I mean? But I know how to get it done. I knew how to I didn't know how to build a headphone. People say to me, well, you're a recording engineer. I said, Bruce Springsteen and Keith Richards are the greatest guitar players, and my favorite. Keith Richards is incredible. If you gave him 2 pieces of wood, he's not going to come out with a guitar. So building a headphone was as far from me and Dre as you could possibly imagine, but we figured out how to do it. So that's how I think is a possibility now to rewrite the book. But if you start seeing licenses pop up to all these other companies, they're going to feed a dragon that is absolutely going to eat them. Absolutely.
5 years from now, do you think we're going to have complete AI created music that is at the top of the charts? Isn't it already happening?
I don't know. Let me tell you, I don't fucking know. If I could predict the future, man, you know what I mean? I wouldn't have health insurance. It's like, I have fire insurance in my house. I can't predict the future. I have I overpaid for everything. I'm a retail guy. But, it's like, I do know one thing, but I don't understand. I hear a lot of these artists coming out against AI. So I come from a place where to get a record deal, I'm going back to when I was a kid, right, in the music business, you had to sing. You had to really sing. Sometimes you had to write, but if you're Barbra Streisand, you had to sing. Frank Sinatra, you had to sing. Those people could really sing. Sam Cooke, woo, could he sing? He could sing and write. You know what I mean? Incredible, right? Stevie Wonder. There's a lot of people out now on the charts right now or being really successful, selling out arenas that can barely sing Happy Birthday. So what I say to the people that are challenging AI, and they're doing that because of technology.
They're like auto-tune and stuff like that.
Whatever the technology is. So my question is, what's the difference between somebody who could barely sing Happy Birthday, which is all over the charts right now, to someone who can't sing Happy Birthday at all? Who's just a marketer and a really clever guy or girl that sat in their mirror and did all the moves that everybody does. They watched Madonna and like everybody else and say, I could do that. I can act like that. So I don't understand the difference. So
yeah, because the amount of technology invented for the music industry since you've been in it, it's like you told me yesterday that Prince did a whole album without a drummer. And I was like, what does that mean?
Well, he's one of the first people to use the Linn drum machine. See, the Linn drum machine, I was producing an album in the 70s, and I brought this guitar player in who I think it may be the first computer I ever saw, but it had a computer on the session. It was 1977. right? And he had a computer on the session. And in between takes, rather than listen with the rest of us, he'd go put a pair of headphones on and go on the computer and do all that. And he looked at, finally I said to him, I said, hey man, what are you doing? I mean, you know, this is a session. We're paying attention to the music. He says, well, I'm creating a drummer. I'm creating a machine that's going to play the drums. I said, well, thank God, because I always had difficulty with drummers. You know, I always felt the way you sit on the beat is impossible. You know what I mean? Because everybody hits where the one hits it on or before or after. It just drove me crazy working with drummers my whole life, you know? And he said, I'm making play a drum. The guy's name was Roger Lynn. Roger Lynn's a guitar player.
That's who made the drum machine?
The Lynn machine.
I didn't know
the
that.
Lynn drum machine.
Oh, wow.
Yes. I've seen technology. I grew up with it. So everybody's afraid of AI. AI is going to make music better. AI is not going to thwart great people. There will always be the next Billie Eilish. There will always be the next Kendrick Lamar. There will always be the next great talent. But there's also going to be a lot of bullshit.
Yeah.
Right? So I think the bullshit will get better. I really do. I think AI is going to help those people that work like that. And by the way, a lot of people that we know right now, great talent, are using AI. They're just not telling anybody. AI will never be able to write Blowing in the Wind by Bob Dylan. Not in anyone who's listening to this or in my lifetime for sure. AI will take the middle of music, the average music, I believe, and make it better because they're great tools. I'm all in on AI music, all in. And I don't think it's going to hurt the greats. But more importantly than anything that I think is that now it's time for the artists and the labels to get on the enterprise side of it.
This is what I wonder if you would agree with or not, because when you were just telling the story of the person that invented the drum machine, he was inventing it out of necessity. He needed a sound for what he was making. I worry that if these are like professional managers in the music industry, like think about the difference between a professional CEO and a founder, right? Like you thought completely different because you're an entrepreneur. Like you were instinctively an entrepreneur. You were an entrepreneur before you even knew you were an entrepreneur.
Well, a record producer's an entrepreneur.
Record producers, but the people running the big
But I was
companies,
a record producer.
Yeah, exactly. Like you had that instinct. But like there's one, almost they don't see the necessity for it. And two, I don't even know if like a professional manager can then reinvent their business to survive the next technological wave. You disagree with that?
I think what's happening is the music industry is finally moving into things they're afraid of. They just need some light. What you don't want to do is license the next AI Spotify and say, give me 3% of your company. That is the greatest deal anyone's ever made. Who gives a shit who owns 3% of my company if your company is Spotify, right? I mean, it's absurd. So they have to grab the enterprise value of the new technology.
But don't you think it's going to come outside? Like one of my heroes is James Dyson. I told you about.
Who?
James Dyson, the vacuum cleaner guy.
Oh, yeah.
And one of his, I love it. And one of his heroes was Buckminster Fuller. And Buckminster Fuller has this quote where it's like, you don't fight if you want to change things, you don't fight the existing system, you build your own. Like you build a new version of that. And I almost feel like what you're talking about has to be done outside.
Anywhere there's not a founder, usually it has to be done outside. You don't usually see big companies innovate.
That's my point.
I'll tell you what, I don't know this company. I don't know the guy. I don't know anything. But I try to pair those new Facebook Ray-Ban glasses. They made a good product.
Yeah.
So that's a founder. Big companies always have the advantage. They just don't. They have bureaucracies and they don't have the entrepreneur as the leader anymore. So can they innovate? That's the question. Can they innovate? And look, I'm a terrible businessman. I had to learn business at Interscope.
You are not a terrible businessman.
I know how to do what I know how to do, but I had to learn business for defense when I got into the record business.
Oh, that's interesting.
1990, I had no fucking idea how to run a company. None, zero.
Is this when David Geffen sold Geffen?
Geffen, yeah.
Can you tell that story?
David Geffen is brilliant, right? He comes from right near my neighborhood in Brooklyn. He's exactly 10 years older than me. He's like 5'7", I'm 5'7". He's Jewish, I'm Italian. We were buddies, right? He was great with artists, you know. He signed Joni Mitchell and the Eagles and all this great shit, right, in his life. So I felt real camaraderie with him. I'm producing records. I'm actually in the studio for 20 years making music. They go on, they sell all these records. I wake up one day, he sold his company for $500 million. I'm like, I'm from Brooklyn. You know, I want to make a lot of money. I'm not embarrassed that I had my whole life. I've been like, you know, I didn't have any money. Yeah. I had money as a record producer, but that's a certain amount of money. I wanted to live like I saw on TV, you know?
Well, you were like, hold on, what I love in the Define ones, because everybody feels this way, especially if you didn't grow up with money. I know exactly what you're talking about. And you were, I think you might have been an engineer before you were a record producer. This story came from when you were an engineer, not a record producer. The producer comes in, he's got like a leather jacket. You're like, what the hell is this? He's got a fancy bag, and then he's got a beautiful girl. Yeah. And you're like,
that's it. Yeah, you bet that's it. I mean, look, look, let me tell you something, man. You got to tell yourself the truth. I'm not Bob Dylan, Mick Jagger, Bruce Springsteen, Stevie Wonder, Marvin Gaye. So I felt the next best way in. I got into producing and engineering, right? That was my next way in, right? So I'm like, well, this feels really good. Then I saw Geffen and I said,
that feels better.
Oh, shit. He's doing the same thing. He's not even in the studio all night. He goes home at 6 o'clock. I'm like 3 o'clock in the morning still working on the drum sound, you know, like doing that. So I said, I bet I can do that.
And then you go talk to him. What does he say?
He said to me, oh, you can start a record company. You know how many stupid people there are that have record companies? I said, okay. So I started a record company.
I read something Jeff Bezos said that changed my perspective on the importance of high quality sleep. He said that he makes sure he gets 8 hours of sleep a night. And as a result, his mood, his energy, and his decision making is improved. His point was that you get paid to make high quality decisions, and you can't do that if you're sleeping terribly. And the product that has made the biggest impact on my quality of sleep for years is 8 Sleep. I'm lucky enough to be friends with the founder of 8 Sleep, Matteo, and we live in the same city. A few months after I started using 8 Sleep, I randomly ran into Matteo at a restaurant and I was with some friends. So I go over and say hi. When I got back to my table, my friend asked me, who was I talking to? And I said, that's Matteo, the founder of 8 Sleep. And my friend replied, he looks like he gets good sleep. Matteo is living and breathing his product. I had never had the ability to change the temperature of my bed before I had an 8 Sleep. I had no idea how much that would improve the quality of my sleep. I keep my 8 Sleep ice cold. It's cold before I get into bed, so I fall asleep faster and wake up less during the night. That feature alone is worth 10 times the price. There are very few no-brainer investments in life, and I believe 8 Sleep is one of them. That is why elite founders like Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk have all said publicly that they use 8 Sleep. I would recommend getting the Pod 5, which is the newest generation of their signature product. It is a smart mattress cover that you place on top of your existing mattress, and it is next level sleep tech. It automatically regulates your body temperature throughout the night, independently for each side of the bed. The result is you get up to a full hour of additional quality sleep per night. Make the no-brainer investment in your sleep by going to 8sleep.com/Senra and use the code Senra to get $350 off. You can try it for 30 days at home and return it if you don't like it, but I'm confident you will love it. I will never let anyone take my 8 Sleep from me. Make sure you get yours at 8sleep.com/Senra.
People were willing to give you money and back you right away. Why? Did you have previous relationships with them? What did they know about you?
No. Doug put up half the money.
Yeah.
Geffen was going to put the money up, but he sold his company, so he was very generous with me. And Ted Geffen was going to distribute the money. And Ted Field was going to put the money up. But Doug volunteered to put up half the money, Doug Morris at Atlantic. So I went to David, and I said, David, you've only put up half the money. He goes, Jimmy, I want what's good for you. Go do it over there. All good. Really helpful to me. But I knew nothing about running a business or, I didn't know you buy vegetables for less money than you sell them. I had no idea of anything regarding business. I had an instinct of how to move and what was important.
I want to pause the story because then when I went to your house the first time, just a few months ago, you told me something I haven't stopped thinking about. You said anybody that's great is bent.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Well, to be really brilliant, I call it there has to be a bend in the pipe. You know, whether it's through trauma or through your interpretation of yourself, of how that it could happen. You can come from the greatest family in the world and have trauma. You know, just it's your sensitivity compared to the environment and put it all together. So the ones that I know that are truly brilliant have a bend in the pipe, you know.
What's the bend that you see normally?
It's usually trauma from when they were younger, family stuff.
It's always the childhood.
Yeah, it's all, yeah. But they had the gift to write or produce or film or paint, right? I mean, they were the chosen ones. That you put that trauma compared with an innate talent, and it makes Picasso, you know? So,
But your bend was it has to be, which brings us to the founding of Interscope, because there was a ton of people after Geffen that had your same idea. We're like, well, I can do that.
14 labels started with $50 million in funding in 1989, 90.
And how many survived?
None.
You.
Interscope.
Yeah.
Me, Ted, John, and Tom Wally.
When you say it has to be, what does that mean?
When you grow up like I did, and you did, and other people that I know.
Yeah, the first time we met, you're like, you're definitely bent.
when you're walking forward, right, the sidewalk behind you is caving in. So you have no choice but to walk forward, no matter how scary it is, how much it hurts. So what you have to learn at that moment is, how do I take this fear and make it a tailwind instead of a headwind? A lot of my friends, the people I know and I watch, the fear stops them. And the ones that succeed is the fear that propels them forward. If you can harness it, learn how to harness it and take that, because fear is energy. It's massive energy. It controls your entire system. And if you can learn to take that fuel and have it propel you forward, it's a powerful thing.
Some of the most successful entrepreneurs on the planet that I've met had said it's like what drives them is not a love of success. It's a fear of failure.
Whatever your fear is, you know what I mean?
So when did you have the insight about fear though? Like when did you said, I train myself that when I feel fear to take a step forward. When?
Well, look, I was the kid in right field playing baseball, right? I come from a neighborhood where physicality, sports, and tough was the currency. I didn't have any of those things. So I had to go learn a whole new set of tools for my toolkit. But when I got to the studio, and I sat there with the guy, Roy Sakala, who was my boss, who taught through me, and they put me in with John Lennon, and all of a sudden, all that fear, I was able to, I don't know why, flip it into energy to learn.
So you're like 20 at the time.
20.
You have a simple genius about you. I want to go back to it has to be in the bend. And this is why I think it's so important to make the documentaries that you made, to do the podcasts that you do, because like then somebody that you've never met that is in a different industry, that's lived at a different time, reads that and like, I'm like that too. And you said something about your early life where you just felt it was all fucked up, but all you knew was that if you just went to the studio, the more time you went to the studio, the better your life got. That is exactly how I feel. Like
let me tell you something.
All I can control.
That's not genius.
No, it is a simple genius. It's practical wisdom.
When people talk about genius, there are real geniuses out there that are freaks, but people talk about people that are successful and stuff like that. It's basically, you're blessed that your instinct drives you in the right direction. And your instinct, Bob Dylan is a genius, but Bob Dylan's instinct drove him for an entire generation to lead. You know, Steve Jobs, or even people that I know, my friends, that their instinct is commercial or works.
But that simple genius of I do more of X and my life gets better. It's very, very smart, especially when you're 20, you're not experienced. You're in the room with legends. I heard the interview, the conversation you had with Rick Rubin, and you both agreed. There's never been other famous people like the Beatles. It's not like, oh yeah, that you know, Taylor Swift's kind of like the Beatles. Like, no, you don't understand how big this phenomenon is. And you're, by your own admission, know nothing, insecure, and you're in the room with them, and you still, there's something very, again, I'm going to use the word simple genius of like your ability to just like, stay here and my life will get better.
It's also to know which pole to start reeling in. You know, when I got permission at Interscope to make our own businesses with the artist, I had a bunch of things going. But soon as Dre said to me, I want to sell sneakers, and I said, no, speakers, right? And I saw him, and I saw his credibility and sound, and I said, oh shit, it all came together, you know? I dropped all the other poles. I just said, okay, let's go.
But there's also a simple genius of the way you move that I admire. And I'm not like trying to just overly compliment you here. Like I really learned from it. Where that story, Dre tells the story of that conversation. He said this conversation the entire time was like 10 minutes. Once you had that realization, you dipped out, you just left. And then you call him like a week later to come to the office and you have like 30 prototypes already done.
Well, because I'm very lucky to be able to connect the dots. I can see something and my little computer in my brain connects all the dots. And the things that I can see. I don't do the things I can't see, but I saw the headphone thing and I said, okay. And then I started to see, oh man, not only do these guys make ugly products, they don't know how to market. They're not cool. They don't.
Back to corny.
Oh, look, corny is a curse. Some people that are corny are really nice, but you know, too corny is just, I don't know, it's not for me. You know what I mean? I'm not, you know, it's like they don't know how to lay in the cut, you know?
What does that mean?
That means they don't know how to lay back and just watch something happen. They're always like, they want to be noticed and they don't have a natural feel for like, you know, for themselves, you know, I think. But what do I know?
I think that's it right there. Let's go back to the Interscope. When you started Interscope, you're like, my bend is it has to be. Like the way you described it to me is just like, there's no, failure wasn't an option. There wasn't like you said plan B didn't even enter your mind, where it's like, I'm doing this, this will work.
Because if you think like that, it's an uncomfortable life, you know? So that's kind of why at 65, I'm 72 now. At 65, I was at Apple and I said, I can't, this is not for me anymore. You know, first of all, Apple's a great company. They treated us great, and we did some great stuff together. But I couldn't just wake up in the morning and do whatever I wanted to do because they're a giant company. And they don't want I'm in the music side of it. They don't want the tail wagging the dog, you know? And I don't blame them, right? Because I come from a world of breaking things. You know, I would try anything, you know? And they have a very structured, fabulous business, right? And so I said, the combination of it having to be successful, how I see it, plus my team like Trent Reznor, et cetera, and Dre, and not being able to do anything to get it to work. And that combination said, you know, you're 65, you know, I met Liberty and we were going to be together. And I just said, you know.
Were you already married at that point?
Yeah.
Okay.
I retired in 2018. I got married in 16.
Okay.
But why I started working again, I was dabbling, but why I started, I'm not running any companies right now.
You said you don't want the bit in your mouth anymore.
Yeah, I don't want it in my mouth. I have to have somebody with that energy that's crazy that runs the companies, you know?
Do you feel you were the version of you that started Interscope was crazy?
No, I was obsessed. I'm obsessed. We're all sort of obsessive people. I was really obsessed. And, you know...
You considered Interscope a very intense mission that had to succeed.
It was I had to be obsessed. And you know what? Obsession doesn't make for a great partner at home.
No, for sure.
You know what I mean? It's like, so, you know, I'm like, okay, I'm 65 years old. You know, how many summers do I have left, as Tom Waits would say? You know what I mean? It's like,
But how old were you when you started Interscope? 30 in your 30s?
I was 38, 7, 8.
And so does that mean every minute of the day is
Yeah.
on making sure?
Interscope. Yeah.
When did you feel the relief? Was there any sense of,
No.
I love that you didn't want to finish the question. That's
No.
till when?
Till I was 65.
We talked yesterday. You said something like, you're always like a happy, optimistic person,
Well,
but
I remember-
miserable at the same time.
Yeah, because
Explain
I
that, though.
remember waking up with Liberty one morning about months after I left Apple and decided I wasn't going to run companies anymore or anything started, whatever. I said to him, do people wake up not thinking of something? Because I was waking up and I had nothing on my mind. And I'm like, what? Do people really do that? You know? And that's what I started feeling. I felt really good. And I feel really, see, the whole goal to me in life, I think it's most people, but some people don't admit it, is the search for peace. You know, and a lot of people lie to themselves about what peace is. I meet somebody, they run companies and they don't want to quit. And I love what I do. You love that more than sitting on a beach somewhere? I mean, yeah,
I do, for sure. I don't want to sit on the beach.
Right now you don't.
Okay.
I'm talking about people that are 75 that don't want to,
Okay.
that can't give up the badge. You know, they have to have that badge to walk into a room. They're not that person. When I left Apple, I wasn't the head of Apple Music anymore, or the head of Interscope anymore, or blah, 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 head of Beats.
So you lose the status part? Is that?
Whatever the fuck it is, I didn't care about any of that shit. I just wanted to stop feeling that feeling, you know what I mean? So I didn't have that. That wasn't a currency for me. It's a blessing and a currency. But I just said, I don't give a fuck. I don't want to, I want this, I just don't want to, I want to get rid of the obsession. I mean, if you want to work past 70, 75, 80, if you're a founder of a company like Phil Knight, I understand that he's still involved with Nike. Do it. If you're feeling it, it's not what I wanted to do. And it's not what I had to do for my own sanity. And
So this is where I want to talk to you about. So from the time, let's say you're 20, you start to 65, you did not feel peace.
No, not for 1 second.
But you become a billionaire. You sell Beats to Apple. What'd that feel like?
Felt great.
Okay. No peace though.
Well, because a company like Apple pays you a lot of money. I'm my father's son. I got a job to do now.
But you have $1 billion in your bank
That
account.
doesn't matter. What matters is there's a job that you're going to do that you're not going to be. I have to get the job done right.
But money is a piece of peace.
Money's a piece of it. It's really great. You know what I mean? But if I have your money, I'm fucked because I got to do the job. And that's kind of one of the reasons I left, because I really couldn't do, hey, this sounds really corny. I couldn't do me there.
That's not corny at all.
It's a
That's
great
not corny
place.
at all.
It's a great place, but I twitch.
You're not. It's a big
Yeah.
fucking company. You're an entrepreneur.
I couldn't have that compulsion, obsessiveness, insanity, and not have the wheel completely. Meaning to make any mistake I wanted to make, to experiment, to just go. I couldn't do it.
How does it feel when you're going through, when it's like, when your version of bend is it has to be, is it just you wake up with like overwhelming pressure every day? Like, what is that?
You wake up seeing it. Yeah, you wake up, I mean, you wake up seeing what's wrong. Every day you wake up seeing what's wrong. I've never had a victory lap in my life.
You don't have any rear view mirror.
I didn't have a victory lap. When we sold Beats, I mean, it was very public. Dre felt great.
Oh, the video with Tyrese?
Yeah, I mean, Dre felt great. I felt great, but I didn't like, I'm like, oh shit, these guys gave us all this money, and now we got to make a streaming service work. And Spotify's got the lead. And I'm like, oh shit. So then the next minute, I was thinking about that.
How different are you and Dre in the way you approach your work? Because when I watch the Defiant ones over and over again, there's a lot of things about him that I personally identify with, and there's a lot of things that about you that I.
Well, we're both record producers.
Okay.
Okay, so
He seems to need more solitude, though. Is he more comfortable? Well, but
I mean, solitude. Dre doesn't go anywhere. Every time Dre and I have to go do something, he calls me the night before and say, "We really have to do this. This is 32 years of it. Do we really have to do this? Why are we doing this?" You know? So yeah, no, he's much more like that than me.
I feel that way too. Like, this is why I like small conversations like this. But if you say, hey, come to this group dinner or come to this public event, I'm like, that's just not going to happen. Like, there's just no way.
Yeah. Well, Dre's like that. But, you know, you got to have a yin and yang to be partners. You know, it works, you know. So we're very different, but we both record producers. I can't explain it. There's certain kind of person I get along with every record producer I ever met.
Yeah.
Swizz Beatz, Timbaland, Pharrell, you know. I love all these guys, man. I get along really well with record producers.
And you can't explain why. It's just the same kind of personality? What is it?
I don't know what it is. I don't think about it, but I know that if I meet a record producer, that's always my favorite people I meet.
Yeah, I feel the same way about founders. There's the founder of NVIDIA, Jensen Huang. I read his biography. He said something that's interesting where he, I think reading between the lines, he tortured himself into greatness. I want to go back to the bend of It Has to Be. Were you like torturing yourself into success?
I don't think it's torturing myself. I just felt tortured. I don't know who was torturing me, but all I knew is that every day I would see what's wrong. What's wrong with the product? What's wrong with the business? What's wrong with the record? What's wrong with the guitar sound? What's wrong with, you know, how the headphones are being sold? What's wrong with the sound of them? What's wrong with... I wake up every morning with seeing what's wrong.
Your example is very different than most of the founders that I talk to or profile, because like Steve would be working on Apple no matter what. He just absolutely loved it. Work for you was always work.
Yeah.
It's like, I shouldn't say like you can't wait till it's over. Is that the right way to think about it? Like,
well, you see, the problem that I had was, if it sounds possible, it was the only place I felt relief, but I was still tortured. So, you know, I don't know what the rest of my life was.
but we had this conversation yesterday, and I told you I was on the phone with a friend driving to your house, and we had the same conversation where he was just, how are you? And I'm like, I'm fantastic and miserable at the same time.
Yeah, well, that's possible.
Yeah, I know, and we talked
I'm
about...
always in a good mood. I don't think I've ever woken up in my life in a bad, except after my father died. I don't think I ever woke up in my life in a bad mood. I wake up in a great mood every day. I wake up happy.
The two words you used are happy and miserable.
Yeah, but there's a whole other side of you that wants to accomplish something. And accomplishing something in the world is not easy. There's everything working usually against you. The world doesn't want to go the way you want to go most of the time, right? So I'm really happy as a person. I got my kids and I'm really happy. And I mean, now I'm really happy. I'm at Liberty and we have 6 kids together and everything is fantastic. I'm really happy. I'm at peace for the first time. But when I was running the companies or producing the record, I just see what's wrong. And it would just drive me bananas.
You're the first person I think actually could explain that to me about how I feel. Because everybody's like, I just was interviewed on another podcast and he's like, are you happy? And I was just like, yeah, I'm happy. But like, I also like am striving to do something.
I think Steve Jobs was tortured.
Oh, for sure. Most of them are. But my whole thing is like, I don't also want to go through life like that. This is where Bruce Springsteen, you kind of pushed me in this direction too when you're like, go watch that movie, you know? Because I didn't, when Jim Iovine says, go watch a movie, I'm like, okay, I'm going to go watch a movie. I thought I was going to watch a biopic of his life. I thought it was going to be like, he was born and then he did this, he did that.
Yeah.
No, it's about the darkest time in his entire life.
That's the only movie he would make.
Why?
He's not going to make the Born in the USA movie. What I'm talking about is I've always been a positive person and I wake up in a good mood. So, you know, you ever met me in those days when I was running Interscope and stuff, you would say, oh, you're having a great time, you know what I mean? But there was always this thing, this compulsion and this insanity that was just driving me constantly. And eventually I wanted to shake that. So I could say to you, yeah, I'm happy in 1980
Yeah.
or something like that. But I wanted to be at peace. And I didn't give a shit about being the head of Interscope or being the head of Beat, right? I mean, that nonsense. I just wanted a peace.
Do you think Bruce is at peace?
I think Bruce has found a lot of peace. I don't ask, I don't speak for him, but I think he's incredible.
I feel that's what he's searching for too in the book, where he's like, I got this thing, I still
Well,
don't have.
I mean, in the words of John Lennon, I'm just trying to get me some peace. And Christ, you know it ain't easy.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I didn't invent this.
No, you didn't invent it, but I think you just said something that I think is important. It's like most people lie to themselves. And Bruce in that book was lying to himself for a while, and then he realized, oh, the actual source of his
Well,
unhappiness.
we all lie to ourselves. And then
Are you still lying to yourself today?
I'm sure about some things,
You
but I
think so?
try not to. I just want to find peace. You know what I mean? And every day is a search for it, and the monsters want to come in, and you got to make your shit bigger than the monster shit. My father would say, as long as the cat's bigger than the shit, keep the cat. The minute the shit gets bigger than the cat, he went like this. I must have been 13 years old, 12 years old when he said that to me. And he was right.
When you were building Interscope, or really any time in your career, when you were younger, what was your inner monologue like? Was it negative to yourself? Were you like overly self-critical?
Only the product. I felt
So
like,
it wasn't, you're like, this product's
first
not good
of all,
enough.
when you grow up not having a lot of money and money being a concern and the family and all that kind of stuff, my family was very generous, but we had reality, right? When you grow up like that, that plays a big part in your brain. You know what I mean? Because you think I'm gonna be broke. That's what you think, So that was a big driver of me.
When did you lose that fear of being broke?
I don't know, but I just know that when I sold to Apple, it didn't fix it.
Dude, I thought you were going to say like when you were making tons of money in Interscope. That's wild.
No, because I had to get something right. That overrides. I knew I had a lot of money. I knew I didn't need money. I knew I was never going to be broke. But it was that what overrode any of it was having to get the job right. That overrode everything.
You were able to separate criticism that the work isn't good enough or isn't done to I am not good enough in your mind.
No, because you beat yourself up. You feel that if you
So
can't...
you were still beating yourself up even when you were in your 50s and 60s.
Oh, yeah. Because...
Do you do it today?
No, I don't. Today I...
Stop on that.
Right. Today I actually approach the job. Now I get cranky. But when I get cranky, when I put the phone down, it doesn't travel with me. Like right now, I do what I need to do with the CEOs that are running the companies and the people that work. I do stuff that I need to do personality-wise to get the job done. And it annoys me when people don't see things clearly or whatever. And, but when I put the phone down, I don't feel it. When I used to do that, I never stopped feeling it because I had to get it right.
I felt like that for a while. This just changed, like as a result of like the work that I've been doing. There's this guy named Brad Jacobs who started 8 separate billion-dollar companies. I did a bunch of episodes of Founders on him. He came to do this show. I've spent a bunch of time with him, and he's 68 years old. He's been an entrepreneur for longer than I've been alive. Like the guy's just like, absolutely incredible. And his whole thing is he just used to beat the shit out of himself mentally. And he's like, you know what? This is not helping my performance. And talking to him and then using some of the strategies in his book, like now I used to have a very negative fuel source, which is I didn't like the way I was born, what the environment I was born into. I'm going to, channel that just like Bruce Springsteen, just like you. It's like, I'm going to channel that into achievement. I thought for a long time that like constant self-criticism of the work that I'm doing will only make it better. So therefore that'll increase my likelihood of achievement. And now I'm like, you know what? I just obsessed with what I'm doing. Like before, when I woke up this morning, I was like giddy So it's like, this is going to be one of the best days of my life. I get to freaking record a podcast with Jimmy. This is going to be insane. Like my self-talk is just like, just love what you do and follow your curiosity, and you're going to be obsessed anyways. You can't work any other way.
Just know that you've handled, to a certain extent, a monster in your life. But the next monster is going to come in a disguise, a different look, a different way. It's going to come in through this door. And you'll wake up one day and that monster will go, oh, fuck, I thought I killed that monster, but this is a new monster, only it's changed its shape.
Where do you think that would happen?
It just happens to everybody in life, you know? Just some people like to admit it and some people don't.
So like, might not be in your professional life, but it might be in your personal life.
It could be anything.
Okay.
Yeah, man. It could be anything. It could be one of your kids. It could be anything, you know? And for the first time in my life, I feel balanced. I feel kind of like, I feel okay. You know, I feel like I'm at peace. But I'm also not running a company. If I was running a company, I know that it's not for me. I know that I couldn't do it. I'm not that cured. You know? But I take what I do serious. I don't take myself too serious because I love having a sense of humor. I think laughing extends your life. So my father was a really funny guy, you know, and we lived like that. And growing up, everything was like, we saw a sense of humor in everything. You know, I remember when he was dying, right before he died, something happened. And it was like a person came in and did something wrong, and he just looked at me and he made a joke because he knew it was funny, and he grabbed the moment. He had 28% of his heart left. But
did he know he was dying?
it was a crazy time in my life. I was 31 years old, or 31, and I went to my grandfather's funeral, his father. And the next morning, my father had a heart attack. And then he died probably 8 weeks later. And then my grandmother, his mother, died the next week. So all three of them died within 8 weeks. So it was really a pretty crazy time. And my father, I was so close with him. He just devastated me. But he always had a sense of humor. So I take what I do really serious, but I don't take myself too serious. I really don't.
And you learned that from him?
Yeah. Yeah. My father was always a hard worker.
He was your best friend?
Still is. You know?
Wow.
Still is. It's his voice that really, if I ever get on the right page, it's always his voice that makes me on the right page. Yeah.
That was the worst day of your life?
It still is. Yeah. Worst day of my life by far. By far. Yeah, man. When he died, I made a Christmas album about him. It was called A Very Special Christmas. And we raised over $100 million for Special Olympics.
I want to ask you some advice unrelated to work. I just saw that you have on your wrist a bracelet with your wife's name on it.
Yeah.
How important has that relationship been in your life compared to your work?
Well, I don't look back, right? So I can only go by how I feel now. And right now it's more important than my work. And that's part of why I have peace. Because we connect, we work on our marriage, we work on our friendship, we work on our bond, and I'm not kumbaya about anything. I realize anything can happen.
No,
at
you're
any moment.
super intense.
So right now it's more important than my work.
You get more satisfaction out of that.
Yeah, it's the only place I find peace. And I'm really in search of peace, man. The rest of the shit, but I do think we can crack the code at Complex. I really believe that. I believe that we can really do something in education. I really believe that. So I'm very passionate about that.
Yeah, you need something to work towards.
And not only that, I want to see that I can get something done without being nuts, without feeling that horrible feeling. I feel like I can get something done without feeling like that.
Yeah, I do too.
You know, it really is the truth, you know. But by the way, not everybody feels like that. There are some really talented people who are completely happy about their work.
Who?
I don't know, but I don't know any of it. But I'm sure they're
No,
out
you've
there.
met, like, I mean, your entire world, your entire life was surrounded by top performers, by geniuses, by people that are, you know, at the top of their profession. And that's why I would light you up with questions the last 2 times we saw each other about like what these people are like. Because what you just said, I want to try to create something great without being nuts. Yeah, me too. And I like want these examples of that.
Yeah, but I wish I could have learned it at 52, but I think I got it at 72.
Why do you think it took you longer than you wanted it to take you?
I didn't go to therapy early enough in my life, because to unring the bells of your childhood takes a lot of work. I'm very pro therapy, you know, I really am.
To unring the bells of your childhood takes a lot of work. That's a great line.
It's true.
And you think the only way to do that is through?
It's my way.
Okay.
It's not the only way.
When did you realize, oh shit, I need it?
I didn't take therapy really serious till my 50s. And I wish I had done it earlier.
And what does really serious mean to you?
I mean, twice a week, but take it in, not just
show up at the appointment and listen, but actually change your behavior?
Yeah.
Were you doing it like in your 30s and 40s?
I started in my 30s and 40s, but I wasn't a good patient or customer or client.
Yeah.
Whatever the fuck they call me.
So you'd show up, you would talk, you would talk, they would talk.
The minute I walk on the phone, I grab the phone, they like, you know, it was like.
You weren't ready to take in the information.
No.
What do you think made you ready other than age?
My divorce. Very simple. I was in a marriage and we were married and everything was going along. And then when we got divorced, which people do, I realized that was a time that I needed to get my shit self-contained. All of a sudden, I got an idea about life that I didn't see before. So I pursued that. It's no different than the school or the beats or streaming or any of the things that
That's a great way to think about it.
Yeah. If I had the idea earlier, I would have did it earlier.
Why did you tell me yesterday that you think I need to talk to somebody?
Because of some of the things that you told me, you know? So some of the personal stuff you told me. I said, it's a lot easier to go with a guide. It's a lot easier to learn how to play tennis with a tennis teacher. It's good to have somebody in your life that doesn't have an agenda. Everybody in your life has an agenda. If you find a person without an agenda, you can get a lot further. You can have those other people who love you very much and care about you, but to have the one without the agenda, for me, was very helpful.
Like, why do you think it works with this particular person?
I believe this person.
You trust their judgment?
Everything in my life is guttural.
Steve was the same way, though.
But you have to know you're wrong. A lot of times, you're doing things for reasons that are controlled by that childhood, right? So as you work through that, you start doing things for more of a reason, more honest reasons that are not driven by that voice of your childhood.
There's another thing that you said to me about you always kept a small circle of...
I still do.
These are true friends.
I try to have an infield, you know?
That's how many people? 7? I don't
know.
But
5, 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
I haven't seen baseball.
And by the way, I don't need another shortstop until the other one dies. You know what I mean? I limit it. I don't go for 6, you know?
And it just takes time to develop trust with these people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I trust other people, but not like that. Not to where I connect like that.
Yeah.
You know, I'm very lucky. You know, when you get to be 72 years old, you have some friendships that are 50 years old.
That's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. It's nice. It's nice. But, you know, on the school thing, we're on to something. And I like to do something, which goes back to all the business stuff, that's going to catch on and going to grow on its own, you know? So I think, like the stuff we're doing in the inner city, we have 5 schools now.
These are high schools now.
Yeah,
Okay.
because, again, my debt to Black culture is enormous. I want to really help the inner city and give these kids an advantage of an education that no one else is thinking about. And I think we're going to build some extraordinary people that companies are going to really want.
So that's the way you want high schoolers and people in college to learn. What's the best way for you to learn something new now?
I was terrible in school. When I had to learn something, I just couldn't do it. I just...
How the hell do you learn to produce records then?
Well, like anybody my age that's in music or around culturally, there was the Big Bang, which was the Beatles on Ed Sullivan. I was probably 11 years old, right? And I didn't have a currency in my neighborhood. I wasn't an athlete. I wasn't physically big. I wasn't any of the things that worked in the neighborhood. And when I saw the Beatles, I said, oh, there's a currency I can have.
Because you try to create music first, right?
Yeah, it was terrible. Coming after, I was in a band, but I realized quick I wasn't going to be in the Rolling Stones. Then I met this woman through my cousin, this woman, Ellie Greenwich, who took me to recording sessions. And that's where I saw that guy with the leather bag and the, and
the beautiful woman.
And the candles and the pretty girl coming to meet him. I said, oh, that's it. I never saw anybody with a leather bag before,
And so you just learn by observing?
No, then I went to get a job as a cleaning up, cleaning up the studio, setting up the studio, repetition, putting this over there, figuring out, being around it, being the ability to observe.
I can see how you can learn to be like a engineer, right?
Mm-hmm.
In a recording studio that way. But then you go to a much more almost like creative part of it, which is producing.
Well, because I had an instinct. I had an instinct for what the audience would like and what they wouldn't like and what was good and what was not.
Based on your own personal taste?
Based on my taste, influenced by John Lennon and Bruce Springsteen.
Okay.
An intense therapy, sitting next to them every day for 5 years.
And you were up close and you saw what true excellence looked like.
Yeah, and they taught me what was cool and what was not cool and what was good and what was great. The difference between good and great and what you do to get there. And so then I was able to produce records because of those two people. I watched them. I watched Landau. I watched John. I watched John Lennon. I watched Bruce. I said, oh, shit. And I just absorbed it. And I applied it. That's how, when Bruce gave me the song Because the Night for Patti Smith, I was able to translate that into a record where I was the producer. I always wanted a song that sounded like the Animals, it's my life and other, that, and we got to get out of this place, right? So when I heard that song and I heard the chorus, because he had the chorus, right? I said, shit. And then I heard, Because the Night belongs to lovers. I said, wow, if a woman sings that, that's powerful. So I said to him, you going to use this song? He goes, no, it doesn't fit on this album. I said, okay, can I use it for Patti? And he was great. And he said, yeah. And she rewrote the verses and killed it. But connecting the dots, and you could learn a little bit how to connect the dots, but you got to be that kind of person that just sees you can connect the dots. And that's as simple and as difficult as it is. I was always able to connect the dots and see what could be, what this is and what it could be. But that's what always tortured me, because I would see something and see what it could be and then try to get it to be that is maddening. Even with beats, I saw the iPod and we finally decided to do it. I said, oh, wow, it could be that. It could be as cool as that. We got to make it as cool as that, because the iPod was really cool.
Did you ever meet Akio Morita, the founder of Sony?
No, but I
observed him.
I observed him, and Steve would talk to me about him, and I saw, but I was always very into the fact that when I met Steve, I never understood instinctively why Sony had Columbia Records, the Walkman, PlayStation, and then the CD and all this stuff. And how did Apple become Apple and not them?
It's almost like they had all the components, but it was siloed.
No, Morita died.
Okay. But it goes back to I see some kind of connection to the school you're doing.
Yes.
Because it's like, you had it all.
Yes.
You just had to have
Yes.
one person like an Akio, who was, if he was alive, or a Steve, or a Jimmy, to put it all together.
I am not as smart as those two people. And I'm just telling you the God's honest truth, man. They knew how to do what they were doing. I don't know how to do what I don't really know.
But you know how to put shit together.
I do. I know how to put shit together, so that's really cool. But
Did Steve talk to you about the influence?
absolutely.
What was he saying about Sony and Akio?
He would say that guy knew what he was doing. He really had a feel. And, it was obvious to me, Marita bought Sony, bought Columbia Records, bought Columbia Pictures. He saw the distribution, the hardware, the software. He saw it all. But Steve took it, not literally, but it was part of the inspiration behind
No, for sure.
his chain of thinking. Right?
He talked in interviews. He talks about what he loved about Akio and the Walkman in particular, because Akio had to fight to build the Walkman in his own company. They're like, this is the stupidest thing.
I remember being with Bruce Springsteen, and he told me, he said, this guy from Sony came up to me, and he runs the company. He says, the guy asked me to put these headphones on if there was enough bass. And it was him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So this guy got it.
Yeah.
And I never met him, but I know he got it. I learned a lot from Steve. I learned a lot from John Lennon. I learned a lot from Bruce. I got really blessed.
Were you able to learn, those are people, well, I guess Bruce was your age, right? You guys are, he's a little older.
He's 3 years older than me.
Were you able to learn from younger people than you? Like were you learning from your artists?
I learned from Bono. A lot from Bono. Bono's 10 years younger than me. When I met Bono in 1983 and we did Under Blood Red Sky, I said, oh shit, the framing of how artists are thinking is changing. I said, wow, look at this. The music was different, and the kind of music that was going on, that they were doing was different. It was a take on punk, but it was like more ethereal and different. And so, and also, he's an extrovert, whereas the other guys, a lot of the guys I worked with, weren't.
They're introverted? Really?
Dre?
So what did you learn from Dre?
Well, Dre brought back the Springsteen thing in me, which was the commitment to a vision and sticking by the culture that you came up in and servicing that culture. And it was something that I really didn't understand in the beginning. So I was really hungry to learn about it, about hip hop and the culture and what it was doing and how it applied and the true power of it. So I learned everything that I know about hip hop from Dr. Dre, period.
I feel like he was some kind of like prodigy as a young person, but then he just has this relentless work ethic. So he took like innate talent and seems to like just through an insane, like day after day after day after day dedication and made because he's the greatest hip hop producer of all time.
Well,
like
Dre and Bruce have a lot in common.
How so?
They are completely uncompromising. Okay? Completely uncompromising. They will not compromise. You have to convince them to move to the left or right. They know completely what they do, and they don't compromise. It's just that simple. Bruce was the lead. When I met Dre and Bruce, it was very similar. They were both broke. And Dre was in trouble and broke. And they would, that vision.
And even back then, they weren't compromising.
Not even close. You couldn't rent Bruce Springsteen. You couldn't buy Bruce. Nothing. You could rent me in those days. You know what I mean? Absolutely. But you couldn't anything with that guy. He didn't think about, well, where am I going to sleep tonight? It was like this. I learned that from him. It was like really, really powerful thing. There was nothing that anyone had that he wanted. Nothing. That's powerful. That's powerful when you're broke. Right? It's like, well, so I admired that.
So Bono was an extrovert. You were,
I say
interrupted you there.
extrovert, meaning he'll go out, he'll talk to people, and he's passionate. And by the way, he in his book and in his play, a one-man show, he talks about the issues he had at home with his dad and all that stuff. But he is the most positive person I met in music.
So his bend, same thing, comes from like this childhood trauma.
Yeah.
But somehow fixed it along the way.
No. He just is naturally positive person. He's tough. He can get plowed through things. He's incredible work ethic, incredible writer, incredible lyricist, incredible performer, but he's positive. Whenever you see him, he's got an idea. He wants to do this. He's got very broad interests. I mean, you know, I didn't go on vacation until I met him.
Say more about that.
I'd never been on a vacation really until the year 2000 because I was doing Rattle and Hum with him in 1988. And I went to the south of France. I remember I was like, whoa, what the fuck?
So you were just myopically focused on achievement.
Yes.
I love this story where you fly to California for the first time, right? I don't think you'd ever been on a plane.
No.
You were 20? How old are you?
20.
You're 20.
Never been on a plane, never been in a hotel.
Never been in a hotel. And then I don't know if it's the same trip or later. I think Tom Petty put you in a house. You had never.
No. Lennon put me in the Beverly Hills Hotel.
But that's when you start to be like, oh wait, the world is huge, and there's a lot in front of me if I focus on this.
Well, I
accomplishment.
remember John took me to a guy named Richard Perry's house.
Okay.
A very famous record producer. And John took me to his house with Harry Nilsson. They were going out. They said, he just was like really nice to me. He said, you want to come? I said, sure. You know, I had nothing to do. I was in the hotel, right? Takes me there, and this guy's got a house in the hills in Laurel Canyon, overlooking, or Doheny or something, overlooking the city. It was at night. He had a tennis court that was lit up. I was like, it's like seeing the guy with the bag. And I was like, holy shit. You know, like, wow.
Yeah. Just opens up the scope of possibilities.
Yeah, you know, you see it for the first time. I'd never been on a plane. I mean, I've only been to Manhattan, you know, because of the work, you know.
Did you know this is where you were going to spend your life? Like, when
the minute I got off the plane and my boss, Roy, said, let's rent the car. We rented a Cadillac, right? And we drove down Sunset Boulevard, and it was December, and it was 78 degrees or something like that. I said, are you kidding me? He said, no, this is the weather like California, you know? So I went to pull into the Beverly Hills Hotel.
First hotel you ever stay in?
Yeah.
Is that's wild.
Ever.
That's wild.
Except the Host Motel in Pennsylvania, where the car pulls up to the door, you know, that one of those places.
Yeah.
And pulls on the highway. Right? So
a little different from where you're at in the bungalow.
This was the first time. And so I go to my room and I come back and I talk to the doorman. I said, can I ask you something? Do regular people live here? And he said, yeah, I'm a regular person. I'm a doorman. I said, I live here. I said, my father's a longshoreman. Are there docks here?
Yeah.
Said it's the port of California. Yes, with one of the biggest ports in the world or whatever. I said, thanks. I go back to my room. I call my mother. I said, Mom, how did you get this wrong? We land in Ellis Island and we live 30 feet from Ellis Island. It's freezing. It's cold. Why don't we live in California?
Yeah.
So yeah, I knew I wanted to live in California from that day.
So how long did it take for you to move here permanently?
79, Tom Petty, Damn the My whole life was controlled by, was documented by albums. I was Damn the Torpedoes when I moved.
How many years later was that?
6.
6 years. And that's when Tom Petty put you up in a house.
Yeah.
And you were kind of freaked out. You're like, I'm in the...
Well, because I never had a house.
Yeah.
I lived in an apartment, right?
Yeah.
There was noises outside the window. You know what I mean? So I was completely freaked out, you know. But Petty was incredible.
What'd you learn from him?
He was the first guy I worked with that was my age. He was like only 2 years younger than me or something. But he was more of a contemporary of mine at that point. We were both trying to prove something, right? So we locked in, and it was just great songwriter. And again, perfectionist in his art. He would never bring a song in. Tom Petty never brought an average song into the studio. He was a great self-editor. He would come in, that song would be complete and done. Bruce is like that as well.
But that's another thing. His motivating factor was creating the best possible song art.
Yeah, he
make.
wasn't thinking about it. Again, like everybody else, you wanted to have a better life, you know?
Yeah.
And here another guy that had issues with his father.
But you had commercial instincts, because there's a great line in the documentary where like he writes some song and you're like, I think he wrote a great song and 2 other ones. You're like, get 7 more, we're done. Or like, this song's going to buy you a house.
Yeah.
And Tom's like, I'd never heard anybody talk that way before.
Well, because I, you know, sometimes I sound crass or whatever. It's just that I have a sense of humor. I know how funny that would sound.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like Bono one day, I didn't work on Joshua Tree. I wanted to do it, but they chose Brian Eno and Danny Lanois, which was a better choice because they wanted to change their sound. But that was the right choice. But they would always bring me in to listen to the songs like Bruce did that day on The River.
Yeah.
So I go in and he plays me this song and he says, this was the beginning of it. He says, Jimmy, this is house music. I said, really? I said, I don't know if I like house music that much. Right. So he plays me With or Without You. I said, Bono, that's house music. He said, no, it's not. You don't know what you're talking about. I said, Bono, that other song, that's apartment music. You put this song out, you're getting a house. Okay? So, you know, that's just the way I express myself. It's just kind of, you know, I try to, you know, I can't help it. If the line is good, I say it, even if it makes you look, you know, like, wow, you're going to buy a house with the song, Tom Petty? I knew when I was saying it that it sounded like that. But my father was like that. He couldn't resist a good line.
Goes back to one of the first things we talked about. It's like the fact that they want you in the room because you tell them the truth. And what I love about you is like exactly before I met you, exactly how I thought you would be, you are in person. And this started with when I sent this clip when you're on Ari Emanuel's podcast. And at the end, I sent the clip to Daniel Eck, and me and him were just laughing about it because you're like, the production, he goes, this is Ari's podcast, this is a production value.
There was a velour couch. And he says it's not a velour couch. I grew up with velour couches, okay? Only my velour couches have plastic on them.
No, but you're like, production value sucks, it's hot, I don't got any tea, the water's warm, you got this goddamn light in my face.
Yeah,
like, you know?
no, it felt... And Rick Rubin sitting there in Italy in this incredible house, backlit. We looks like Moses. I'm like, what the fuck?
Last thing, what did you think of production value today? You happy?
I thought it was good. When you finally get going, I mean, the wood paneling is just not really for me. You know, I'm not like... Because I had wood paneling growing up, you know what I mean? Everything was not real.
Well, we got you the tea. I sent that clip to the team. I was like, Jimmy's coming. We're not going to disappoint him. We have the air going.
It's a very nice time. It's a very nice place. It's perfect.
I absolutely love you. I tell you this all the time. You're one of the people I most admire.
This was fun.
People I want to most be like, thank you so much for taking the time.
This
dude.
was
It's so
fun.
great.
Hey,
Thanks,
look,
man.
you know.
Oh, don't leave me hanging. Don't leave me hanging, Jimmy. Come on.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see that. I was looking for my microphone.
No, you're good. Thanks, man.
I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please remember to subscribe wherever you're listening and leave a review. And make sure you listen to my other podcast, Founders. For almost a decade, I've obsessively read over 400 biographies of history's greatest entrepreneurs, searching for ideas that you can use in your work. Most of the guests you hear on this show first found me through Founders.